In this video I'm going to show you some of the steps I went through to make my kayak cooler. It is made out of polyurethane foam, which I got from uscomposites.com, and I'm using their 8-pound per cubic foot formulation, which makes a pretty dent-proof foam when once it's hardened. The cooler was actually cast in two steps, a bottom half and a top half. The bottom half was done in the boat, so I could get the contours of the hull. And also I wanted to make it so that the cooler could not fall out of the boat. So I designed it so that it drops in where the boat is wider, and then you slide it back underneath the gunnel. At least the latter half is under the gunnel, and that kind of locks it in place vertically. So there's actually slots in the side of the cooler that both above and below the gunnel that accomplish this task. The first stage was to build the forms necessary to cast it in the boat, and so I've got a combination of many different wood products that are all scraps I found around the shop, and then two tubes that I made out of PVC pipe that was from installing a built-in vacuum cleaner. And then the ends of those pipes were flared using a heat gun and a light bulb for the flare. Creating the bulkheads was certainly the most complex part of this set of forms, since the boat has fairly complex curves. And to fill in the little gaps that were left, I used potting clay, which turned out to be a very good material to work with when working with this expanding foam, because it, with enough pressure on it, it held in place quite nicely and kept the foam from going places where I didn't want. So in the video clip that comes up next, I'll show you the actual pour of the mixed foam into this form. To get the proper amount of expansion when the foam goes through its chemical reaction, it needs to be done at about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And the only place I have to achieve that temperature and control it pretty accurately is inside a greenhouse. So in the video that's following, you'll see plants, and you'll hear a greenhouse fan kick on at one point. After the first pour has expanded, you can see some of the material in the bottom half of the boat, especially around the PVC pipe, and then on the aft end of the form for the cooler interior. Also, it'll be more apparent in a still image I took following this video clip, where you can now see the lower half of the casting as it's sitting in the boat, and again you can't really see under the part of that casting goes underneath the gunnel all the way to from the PVC pipe to the end of the form. In the next video I'll show you the pour to do the upper half of the cooler, And in this case, it was all done outside the kayak, since I wanted rectangular shapes and corners, so that could be done in a box. Although, again, because the kayak's sloped towards the rear, some of the contours were somewhat complex. After about a 5-minute wait, I had foam coming out of the relief hole on the top, about 4 cubic inches, which I then sheared off before it fully hardened. After the castings were complete, the outside surfaces were sanded and then coated in Hot Wire Foam Factory's Plyoblast, which was a nice hard shell, and then painted white. So the final piece is the door to the cooler, and that was made out of 2 1-inch thick pieces of polystyrene that are glued together, and then the inside surface has another piece of the double-sided mylar with the bubble interior that I also used to line the interior of the cooler, and then the outside surface is coated with the Plyoblast to give it a nice shell that's pretty impervious to dents and scratches. And you can see I did a double inset to try to get a pretty tight fit, and it seemed to have worked out quite well.